Hey there friends, it's Carly. Welcome back to my channel, or hello if you're new here, and welcome to another Coffee and Conversations video. Today we are talking all things postpartum, so mental health, body image, breastfeeding and friendship breakups. So if that's something you're keen to see, grab yourself a cuppa and let's get into the video. So just to give you some context, if you're new here or you didn't know, I am a first-time mum to a 5-month-old beautiful boy named Hunter. I gave birth in December, and honestly, I was hit pretty hard with postnatal depression. The first month was honestly the worst, but it had kind of like continued to trickle on into subsequent months, even with like the supports that I had in place. So for me, that looked like daily bouts of like hysterical crying, feeling hopeless, like a failure, feeling just like super down and that I couldn't get out of it. To the extreme of thinking that my son hated me, feeling a sense of like disassociation with him. I did have a traumatic birth and I didn't get to see him for the first couple of hours after he was born, and I guess maybe it was like the PTSD associated with that. Maybe it was also like all the hormones and the mental health that kind of came hormonally, like as I was, you know, entering in that postpartum 4th trimester period. But I just couldn't conceptualize the fact that he was actually my son, and the being that I had inside of me and I carried and grew for 9 months was this one that I was seeing outside in the real world as like an actual human being. Like I knew it from a logical standpoint, but just like from an emotional standpoint, it was really hard to rationalize that that's actually my kid. And then all the way to feeling like Dave and Hunter would be better off without me, that I'm a terrible mum, that I'm like somehow messing him up, which kind of like culminated in me having really depressing thoughts about ways that I could end my life. So that's how postnatal depression kind of manifested for me. Obviously for everyone it's like a case-by-case basis and it's super different, but I feel like the first month was probably the worst, and after that I really started being intentional and strategic about getting help. So from the start of the year until now, like I've been seeing a psychologist like every fortnight. I started taking medication. I'm also been like really rigorous about incorporating sort of daily habits that are going to boost my feel-good hormones, my mental health, and carve out time for myself. Things like reading, having a cuppa and just watching a YouTube video, getting out of the house. I had a lot of anxiety about getting out of the house for probably about 2 months. Whether that's going for a walk or going for a drive or just parking down by the water and sitting there and having a cuppa, doing some exercise or stretching, being productive and doing my YouTube videos. Like all of these things have been really good to give me a sense of purpose, but also a sense of like independence and self-care as well. I'm the type of person that I will put all of these strategies in place, but I will remove them too soon. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling great. Like I'll have one really good day or a couple of really good days in a row, and then I'll be like, yeah, I'm on top of the world. My mental health's great. I'm like all over this postnatal depression. We're cured. Let's move on. And then like I'll hit a wall, or like, you know, there'll be a turning point and I'll realize actually, wait, this is like a longer term journey and healing, and we just gotta like keep going with doing the work. And not rush the process. And something that I've learned recently, which I found very interesting, is that it actually takes 2 years after giving birth for your hormones to actually regulate and for your whole like body and mind to get back to a state of like normalcy, I suppose. So I feel like we're at a long like process of doing the work here, physically and mentally, and I really don't want to remove any of those supports that I have in place too early and then suffer the consequences of it. So that's kind of a little bit of an update of where I am in terms of my mental health. I feel like overall I'm feeling a lot better, but I have good days and I have bad days, and like we all do. So it's just something I need to keep on working on. Another thing that I want to chat about is my postpartum body and body image. It was definitely something that I wasn't necessarily concerned about, but I was curious about as I was pregnant. Obviously my body was changing a lot as I was pregnant, growing a baby. And I was wondering, how would I look and feel postpartum? How would I feel about my body? And I actually did lose like a lot of my baby weight, and it was not intentional at all. Like I wasn't, you know, I didn't give birth and just think, oh, okay, I've got to get back into shape or anything like that. I was for like a good while not even in a place to think about that. And I think 2 things that had inadvertently kind of contributed to that was, number 1, stress. Like obviously being a first-time parent, having no idea what I'm doing, and like lots of sleepless nights, not a lot of time for myself and to eat properly, contributed. And then also breastfeeding. I did not realize like how much of a contribution breastfeeding would be. And an interesting fact I found out recently was that during the day, our brain uses 20% of our like total energy capacity to sort of run and do all the things that a brain does. Creating breast milk uses 30%. So I mean, even if I wasn't exercising, I would be burning a lot of energy just by breastfeeding. But I am exercising. Like throughout the entire duration of my pregnancy, I was working out, mostly just doing kind of like light resistance sort of workouts, yoga and Pilates. And since I got cleared from my doctor after my 6-week checkup, I have been delving back into fitness and just keeping it like super easy. So basically doing the same. I kind of alternate between a YouTube workout video, mostly like Pilates based, sometimes weights based, or sometimes body weight resistance based, with yoga or stretching. And then pretty much every day, weather permitting, I'll take Hunter and the dog for a walk as well. But I'm not like full on like heaps into fitness. I'm not doing it every single day. Like these workouts are 20 minutes max. I'm keeping it like really simple and really easy. But I definitely have found like I lost a lot of strength and flexibility after giving birth, and it's been really fun and interesting kind of building that back up again. And just the process of carrying him around, feeding him, all of these different things I feel like has also been really taxing on my body. So being able to have a really good stretch or a good yoga session is so necessary for me, I think. But I haven't really contemplated like how my body is looking. It's very rare that I will like go and sort of look at myself in the mirror without clothes on and sort of inspect what's going on and how things have changed and whatnot. I feel like it's totally not something I'm even like worrying about at the moment. I think I've just got like so much else to do with like looking after Hunter and trying to maintain the house and my YouTube uploads, that worrying about like how my body looks, whether it looks, you know, desirable or a certain way that I want it to, or different or anything like that, is just not really on the radar at the moment. I'm mostly just thinking about like, can I move with ease, like, am I strong enough and able enough to do the things that I need to do to look after my son? And then also just being able to exercise purely for like my mental health as well. So I know body image after pregnancy can be, I guess, something that people are concerned about or a cause of like anxiety a little bit, but for me it hasn't been, and I think that not having to worry about that is great, because like I've got enough to worry about at the moment without adding that to like the pile of things. So speaking of losing weight because of breastfeeding, I want to give like a quick little update in terms of my breastfeeding journey. I had always hoped and desired to breastfeed. That was my intention, and I know that like a lot of women do struggle with this, and I was aware of that and wondered like whether it would be something I would struggle with as well. But no one really talked about like why it's a struggle. And I think one of the things that I was ignorant of is I thought that when I went to the hospital and I gave birth, that the midwives or the nurses there would actually show me and teach me how to breastfeed and to get the technique down. And perhaps they were too busy, or like, I don't know, maybe that's just like not even a thing that I just concocted that idea in my mind perhaps, but it didn't happen. Maybe they thought that like I would intuitively know. So I did not really feel very confident with breastfeeding for quite some time. And for the first month, I was honestly about ready to give it up like every single day. I was in absolute agony. My nipples were bleeding. There was like little pieces of skin hanging off them. I'm sorry, this is graphic imagery here. I got mastitis like I think 3 times, and the first time was the worst. I was so sick to the point where like I could barely get up and move, let alone look after a child. The process of breastfeeding was so painful that when it got time for me to actually feed him, I would be crying because I was in such physical pain and I had such anxiety about feeding him. And the thing that really like created the shift and the click for me was I finally watched a video on, I think it was the Australian Breastfeeding Association website, that actually showed real people breastfeeding and showed you the tips and tricks on how to get a good latch. And previous to that, like all of the booklets that I'd been given, it was either like cartoon images or sometimes photographed stills, but you really couldn't conceptualize like the positioning and the movements and everything, which you wouldn't think was necessary, but honestly it is. It's like there's an art to it. And the thing that I realized is whenever he was opening his mouth, no matter what size, I was basically just trying to shove my nipple in there. And that like improper, that small latch was the thing that was causing the biggest problem. So I needed to get like that wide mouth, that big mouthful. Sorry, all this graphic imagery breastfeeding here. To get that good latch, and then that's when you get like the good sucking, they get like all the milk, all the nutrients, and it is not painful. And honestly, like once I got down that latch properly, things just totally shifted. I was at a point where I was in pain, agony, crying. Like honestly, I was waiting till 6 weeks. I just had 6 weeks in my mind, and then I was gonna slowly start, you know, introducing 1 bottle a day to replace breastfeeding each week. I'll introduce a new bottle per meal, and I was gonna fully phase it on out. Like that's the place that I was at. And I'm really glad that I did stick with it, because now it is just so easy. Like I don't even need to think about it. You can just whack him straight on. And it's very convenient because I can sort of do it whenever and wherever. On the other hand, it is also quite physically and mentally taxing because I'm the only one that can breastfeed. But thankfully, when I was kind of like in that state where I wasn't sure that I wanted to continue on with it, we did start doing some mixed feeds and introducing him to the bottle. So now if I want to give him a bottle, either myself or Dave or someone else, he is totally happy to take that and have formula. So on the one hand, I'm glad that I stuck with breastfeeding, but on the other hand, I'm also glad that we did try introducing a bottle early, because I know that that's like a go-to, like easy backup whenever I'm out and about, or if I need to leave him with my parents to have an appointment or go somewhere. I know that I can pump if I want to, but I don't need to like have to rely on my milk or on feeding him. And then that kind of relieves like the physical and mental burden from me, because it is a lot, particularly like in those newborn days where I was getting up at night, you know, like 3, 4, however many times in the night time for an hour by myself. It was quite taxing. And it was also quite lonely. Like I thought that there would be like an element of like quiet solitude and relaxation at nighttime. But when you're like alone with your baby breastfeeding at 1 o'clock in the morning and it's quiet and your partner's just sleeping blissfully in the bed, it's kind of lonely. It's kind of boring. It feels sort of isolating. So I am very glad that, you know, at this point in time, like I only need to do 1 feed a night, if at all any. Sometimes he does sleep through, or like he'll just wake up and just need like a little pat to get back to sleep, and that's it. Because those night feeds, yeah, they're killers. But that's sort of where we're at with breastfeeding at the moment. And then he's not showing any interest in adult food at this point. So the doctor said when we went for our 4-month checkup, just wait until he shows like any sort of interest. We normally recommend giving, you know, starting solids at like 6 months, and at this point he's just like chilled to be on the breast. So we'll wait till he shows interest, and then we'll check in with the doctor and see sort of what she recommends we sort of start with. Like, but yeah, that's sort of where we're at with the breastfeeding journey. The last thing that I want to chat about is kind of interesting and something that I really did not expect as I was entering into motherhood, and that is going through a friendship breakup.
Hi there. It's Editing Carly from the future. As I was sitting down to edit this portion of the video, I was having mixed feelings about whether I wanted to talk about this experience at all, and I decided that I would, but I would just provide you guys with a condensed version, because as I'm sitting down in this chair sort of filming it, I am giving a more detailed summary of what transpired. I'm super grateful for the fact that despite being diagnosed with PCOS, I was able to conceive Hunter naturally and quite quickly, mind you, and I know that that's not everyone's experience. And when I did record my pregnancy announcement video, I did make sure to mention that, because I wanted to be really sensitive of those who were experiencing fertility struggles. My best friend of, 10 plus years, unfortunately, had been dealing with this experience, and I had been someone who had been there for her and supportive of her for a number of years, and being able to encourage and be a sort of a listening ear during those times of, sadness and struggle. And I really did hope that when I announced that I was pregnant, that despite her own feelings and circumstances, that she would be able to be genuinely happy for me and, this life-changing, exciting new adventure I was going on. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and instead I spent months having my experience be ignored or downright rejected. And once my baby had arrived, unfortunately, he was treated the same. And when I finally worked up the courage to voice my hurt, the response was incredibly rude and shocking, and I think mainly just a reaction to her own feelings of bitterness, resentment, and hurt. But it did still hurt me and meant that I lost someone who had been a very close friend of mine. I share this experience not to create any conflict or controversy, but to let you know, no matter your circumstances, that you are not alone. And it is perfectly reasonable to love someone, but to not accept their bad behavior. And also to be happy for someone, but sad for yourself and your own circumstances at the same time. That's pretty much all I'm going to say on this topic. I'm definitely in my healing era at the moment, and I really don't want to give this negative situation any more time or energy than I have already given it. I'm now going to move into the outro of this video, which you will probably find rather rushed, unfortunately. As I was recording it, Hunter had just woken up from a nap and was crying, so I was trying to wrap things up rather swiftly.
With that being said, I'm going to wrap up today's postpartum update. I hope you enjoyed coming along the journey of, the last 5 months, the ups and downs with me. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe down below. I put out new videos every single week. With that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye guys.